I didn't think twice when I stepped into the living room that night. It was late, and I had only gotten up to fetch a glass of water. I hadn't expected anyone else to be awake, not my husband Victor, who was away on a business trip, nor Alex, my stepson, who usually stayed in his room until well past noon. So when I spotted him sitting on the couch, I froze. Not because he startled me, but because of how he was looking at me. His eyes locked onto mine, unwavering, and it took me a moment to grasp why. That's when it hit me, my nightgown. The fabric was almost translucent under the soft glow of the floor lamp beside him, clinging to my figure in ways I hadn't intended. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can keep sharing more gripping true stories like this one. Don't forget to watch until the very end and hit the like button. This story is about to get even more intriguing. Show your support by liking the video. Alex, I finally managed to say, my voice coming out softer than I intended. He didn't respond, his gaze drifting over me in a way that made my stomach tighten, not in discomfort, but in something far more dangerous. Instinctively, I clutched the neckline of my gown, suddenly feeling exposed. But it was too late. His expression spoke volumes. I quickly turned, murmuring something about needing water, but my hands trembled as I reached for the glass. The weight of his presence in the room lingered, heavy and unspoken. When I glanced back, he was still watching me, his gaze intense, unreadable yet enough to steal the breath from my lungs. That moment was when everything shifted. I suppose I should explain who I am and how I ended up here, in a situation where a single look from my stepson could unravel me. My name is Margaret, though it feels too refined for the tangled mess of my life. I'm 53, married to Victor Hallworth, my second husband. He's dependable, but that dependability doesn't extend to our relationship. When I married him a decade ago, I thought I had finally found stability after years of struggling as a single mother. My first husband left me with nothing but heartbreak and debt, while Victor offered the security I desperately craved. But security is not love, and as time passed, our marriage became more of an arrangement than a romance. Victor is often away, leaving me alone in this vast, elegant house, surrounded by luxury, yet starved of warmth. I tried to fill the void with hobbies, gardening, painting, but even those feel like hollow distractions. I've become an invisible presence in my own home, fading into the background. That is, until Alex came back. He's 24 now, freshly graduated and home for the summer while he figures out his next steps. I've known him since he was a teenager, polite, reserved, always a bit distant. But the Alex who returned this summer wasn't the same. He moved with a new self-assurance, his gaze sharper than before. He had grown into himself, and for the first time I truly noticed. I told myself it was nothing, just a fleeting thought. But that night in the living room when I caught him looking at me that way, something shifted. I went back to bed but lay awake for hours, replaying the moment in my head, his stare, the charged air, and the way my body reacted, igniting a heat I hadn't felt in years. I told myself it was just a glance, an insignificant moment, but deep down, I knew better. That night was the start of something I couldn't yet name, something I wasn't ready to admit to myself. Because when I woke up the next morning, the memory of Alex's eyes on me wasn't something I wanted to forget. It was something I longed to experience again. The morning after that night, everything felt heightened. I was acutely aware of Alex's presence in a way I hadn't been before. The sound of his footsteps in the hall, the timbre of his voice on the phone, even the faint trace of his cologne lingering in the air. It was all amplified. I tried to distract myself, scrubbing the counters and reorganizing the pantry as if cleaning could wipe away the memory of his gaze. But by dinner time, I was a wreck. With Victor still away, it was just Alex and me at the table, sharing an uncomfortable meal. I avoided his eyes, pretending to be absorbed in my plate, as though the roasted chicken required my full concentration. "You've been quiet today," Alex remarked, finally breaking the silence. I looked up, startled. His tone was casual, but his eyes held a different weight. "Just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. "Is that all it is?" he asked, his voice heavy with implication. The question lingered, thick in the air. I felt heat creep up my neck and quickly looked away, feigning interest in refilling my water glass. You know, he continued, his voice gentler now, about last night. My hand stilled mid-pour. What about it? I asked, forcing my tone to remain neutral. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, he said, leaning back in his chair. It's just, I wasn't expecting to see you like that. My pulse quickened. Alex, it's fine. Let's just forget it ever happened. Can you? He asked, his voice low, almost challenging. I had no answer. Instead, I abruptly stood, gathering my plate. I'm going to clean up. I heard the scrape of his chair as he rose and followed me into the kitchen. Margaret, he murmured, his voice closer now. I turned, clutching my plate as though it could shield me. Alex, stop! He paused, his expression unreadable, then nodded, stepping back. Okay, I'll stop for now. The way he said it, calm, certain, sent a shiver down my spine. The days that followed became a careful balancing act. Alex didn't push, but he didn't withdraw either. He was always there, hovering at the edges of my awareness, watching, waiting. One evening a storm rolled in, knocking out the power. With Victor still in New York, the house felt enormous and eerily empty as rain pounded against the windows. I lit candles in the living room, their flickering glow doing little to dispel the tension hanging between us. Are you okay? He asked, stepping into the room. I'm fine, I said, placing a candle on the coffee table. He sank onto the couch, his posture relaxed but his gaze sharp, tracking my every movement. You don't seem fine. I exhaled heavily, lowering myself onto the seat opposite him. It's just the storm, I murmured. It makes the house feel empty. You don't have to be alone, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. My breath hitched, but I forced a chuckle, dismissing his words. You've been reading too many dramatic novels. He didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Margaret, we both know what this is. My heart thumped loudly. What are you talking about? This, he said, motioning between us. I see the way you look at me, and I know you've noticed how I look at you. I'm not a child anymore. I stood abruptly. This conversation is over. I turned to leave, but his hand reached out, gently grasping my wrist. The touch sent a shiver through me, a sudden jolt of awareness crackling through my skin. Margaret, he murmured, his eyes holding mine. Don't walk away. For a moment I was frozen, torn between the instinct urging me to run and the magnetic pull that kept me locked in place. Please, he whispered, his voice unsteady, just enough to reveal the raw vulnerability behind his confidence. That was what undid me. I sank back into the seat, my pulse erratic, and he released my wrist. The space between us felt thick, charged with something I couldn't define. This is dangerous, I whispered. Sometimes danger is worth it, he countered, his tone unwavering. The first time was hesitant, a clash of longing and restraint neither of us could fight anymore. It happened in the soft flicker of candlelight, the raging storm outside muffling the sound of our breathing. Afterward, I lay in his arms, watching the shadows dance across the ceiling. This can't happen again, I said, my voice barely audible. Why not? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Because it's wrong, I replied, shifting away. Oh, because of Victor? He asked, sitting up. Victor doesn't deserve you. His voice sharpened. He doesn't even see you, Margaret, but I do. His words cut through me, leaving me speechless. I need time, I finally whispered, gathering my robe tightly around me. Take all the time you need, he said, his eyes steady. I'm not going anywhere. But time didn't make things easier. If anything, it made them worse. The tension between us only deepened, slipping into every shared moment, a brush of fingers in the kitchen, a glance that lingered too long, the way his voice softened when he said my name. I tried to distance myself, but it was impossible. Alex had taken root in my thoughts, my pulse reacting to the sound of his footsteps, the faint scent of his cologne in the hallway. Then, one evening, Victor called. I'll be home tomorrow, he said briskly. I've been away too long. A wave of panic surged through me. His return would... I exhaled heavily, lowering myself onto the seat opposite him. It's just the storm, I murmured. It makes the house feel empty. You don't have to be alone, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. My breath hitched, but I forced a chuckle, dismissing his words. You've been reading too many dramatic novels. He didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Margaret, we both know what this is. My heart thumped loudly. What are you talking about? This, he said, motioning between us. I see the way you look at me, and I know you've noticed how I look at you. I'm not a child anymore. I stood abruptly. This conversation is over. I turned to leave, but his hand reached out, gently grasping my wrist. The touch sent a shiver through me, a sudden jolt of awareness crackling through my skin. Margaret, he murmured, his eyes holding mine. Don't walk away. For a moment I was frozen, torn between the instinct urging me to run and the magnetic pull that kept me locked in place. Please, he whispered, his voice unsteady, just enough to reveal the raw vulnerability behind his confidence. That was what undid me. I sank back into the seat, my pulse erratic, and he released my wrist. The space between us felt thick, charged with something I couldn't define. This is dangerous, I whispered. Sometimes danger is worth it, he countered, his tone unwavering. The first time was hesitant. A clash of longing and restraint, neither of us could fight anymore. It happened in the soft flicker of candlelight, the raging storm outside muffling the sound of our breathing. Afterward, I lay in his arms, watching the shadows dance across the ceiling. This can't happen again, I said, my voice barely audible. Why not? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Because it's wrong, I replied, shifting away. Oh, because of Victor? He asked, sitting up. Victor doesn't deserve you. His voice sharpened. He doesn't even see you, Margaret, but I do. His words cut through me, leaving me speechless. I need time, I finally whispered, gathering my robe tightly around me. Take all the time you need, he said, his eyes steady. I'm not going anywhere. But time didn't make things easier. If anything, it made them worse. The tension between us only deepened, slipping into every shared moment. A brush of fingers in the kitchen, a glance that lingered too long, the way his voice softened when he said my name. I tried to distance myself, but it was impossible. Alex had taken root in my thoughts, my pulse reacting to the sound of his footsteps, the faint scent of his cologne in the hallway. Then one evening, Victor called. I'll be home tomorrow, he said briskly. I've been away too long. A wave of panic surged through me. His return would suck. I exhaled heavily, lowering myself onto the seat opposite him. It's just the storm, I murmured. It makes the house feel empty. You don't have to be alone, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. My breath hitched, but I forced a chuckle, dismissing his words. You've been reading too many dramatic novels. He didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Margaret, we both know what this is. My heart thumped loudly. What are you talking about? This, he said, motioning between us. I see the way you look at me, and I know you've noticed how I look at you. I'm not a child anymore. I stood abruptly. This conversation is over. I turned to leave, but his hand reached out, gently grasping my wrist. The touch sent a shiver through me, a sudden jolt of awareness crackling through my skin. Margaret, he murmured, his eyes holding mine. Don't walk away. For a moment I was frozen, torn between the instinct urging me to run and the magnetic pull that kept me locked in place. Please, he whispered, his voice unsteady, just enough to reveal the raw vulnerability behind his confidence. That was what undid me. I sank back into the seat, my pulse erratic, and he released my wrist. The space between us felt thick, charged with something I couldn't define. This is dangerous, I whispered. Sometimes danger is worth it, he countered, his tone unwavering. The first time was hesitant. A clash of longing and restraint neither of us could fight anymore. It happened in the soft flicker of candlelight, the raging storm outside muffling the sound of our breathing. Afterward, I lay in his arms, watching the shadows dance across the ceiling. This can't happen again, I said, my voice barely audible. Why not? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Because it's wrong, I replied, shifting away. Oh, because of Victor? He asked, sitting up. Victor doesn't deserve you. His voice sharpened. He doesn't even see you, Margaret, but I do. His words cut through me, leaving me speechless. I need time, I finally whispered, gathering my robe tightly around me. Take all the time you need, he said, his eyes steady. I'm not going anywhere. But time didn't make things easier. If anything, it made them worse. The tension between us only deepened, slipping into every shared moment. A brush of fingers in the kitchen, a glance that lingered too long, the way his voice softened when he said my name. I tried to distance myself, but it was impossible. Alex had taken root in my thoughts, my pulse reacting to the sound of his footsteps, the faint scent of his cologne in the hallway. Then one evening, Victor called. "I'll be home tomorrow," he said briskly. "I've been away too long." A wave of panic surged through me. His return would David Caldwell, he remarked as he poured himself a glass of scotch. "You remember him, don't you, Margaret?" I nodded, though the name sent a wave of unease through me. David was an investigator, keen, perceptive, and far too observant for my comfort. When he arrived, his handshake was firm, his smile polite but scrutinizing. As we settled in for dinner, I sensed his gaze on me more than once, lingering just long enough to unsettle me. "Quite the house," David noted, scanning the room. "Victor always had a taste for the luxurious." Victor chuckled. "It helps having a wife who knows how to make a place feel like home." I forced a smile, my stomach tightening as David's attention shifted to Alex. "And you?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. "What's the plan, Alex?" "Following in your father's footsteps." Alex shrugged, his voice measured. "Still figuring things out." David's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Smart. No need to rush into anything." The rest of the evening passed without incident, but I couldn't shake the feeling that David was assessing us, piecing together the dynamics of the household with an accuracy that made my skin crawl. That night, I found Alex waiting for me in the garden, his silhouette barely discernible in the moonlight. "He knows something," I murmured, wrapping my arms around myself. "David?" Alex asked, his voice steady. I nodded. "I can feel it, the way he watches us. It's like he's putting things together." "Let him," Alex replied, stepping closer. "He has nothing on us." "But what if he finds something?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "Then we handle it," Alex assured me, his fingers brushing against my cheek. The next day, things took an unexpected turn. While sorting through the mail in the study, I came across an envelope addressed to me, the handwriting unfamiliar. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "I know what you've been up to. Meet me at the diner on 5th at 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone." My hands trembled as I reread the note. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a name to know who had sent it. Something was wrong. Victor's voice startled me and I quickly folded the paper, tucking it into my pocket. "Everything okay?" "Fine," I said, forcing a smile. That evening I told Victor I was meeting a friend for coffee. He barely glanced up from his laptop as I left, my heart pounding as I made my way to the diner. Sophie was waiting for me in a corner booth, her expression smug as I slid into the seat across from her. "You've been busy," she said, stirring her coffee. "What do you want?" I asked, cutting straight to the chase. She smirked, leaning back in her chair. "Money, of course. Enough to make me forget what I've seen." I clenched my fists beneath the table. "You have no proof." "Don't I?" she countered, pulling out her phone. She tapped the screen and my blood ran cold as I saw a grainy photo of Alex and me in the garden, his hand resting on my cheek. "Delete it," I demanded, my voice unsteady. "Not until I get what I want," she replied. 50 grand by the end of the week." "I don't have that kind of money," I said, my mind racing. "Then figure it out," she said, standing and slipping her phone back into her purse. "Because if you don't, Victor will be the first to know." When I told Alex about the meeting, he was livid. "She's bluffing," he said, pacing. "She has photos," I countered, my voice shaking. "She's not bluffing, Alex. She means it." "Then we'll pay her." "With what?" I asked. "Neither of us has access to that kind of money." His jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. "Then we'll find another way." In the following days, the tension in the house became unbearable. Victor seemed unaware, but David's presence loomed like an impending storm. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation between David and Victor in the study. "There's something off about Alex," David remarked. "If I were you, I'd keep an eye on him." Victor's tone was cautious. "What are you implying?" David hesitated. "Just a feeling. Call it professional intuition." That night, Alex came to my room, his expression grim. "We can't keep this up," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "This house, this situation, it's too dangerous," he said. "We need to leave." "Leave?" I repeated, stunned. He nodded. "Just you and me." We can go somewhere far away. Start over. Alex, that's crazy, I said. We can't just disappear. What's crazy is staying here, pretending everything is fine when it's not, he said, his voice rising. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. I can't just walk away. From Victor. From this life. Do you love him? Alex cut in, his voice sharp. I froze. That's what I thought, he said, his voice softening. Margaret, I love you. I can't stand the thought of losing you. His words shattered something inside me, and I clung to him as though he were the only thing keeping me afloat. But even as I held him, a nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered that this wasn't over. The storm was still brewing, and when it finally broke, nothing would be left unscathed. The next day, everything unraveled faster than I could control. Alex's plea to run away echoed in my mind, but disappearing felt impossible. Victor remained oblivious, immersed in work, but David's presence was like a shadow lingering over us. And then there was Sophie, her demands growing louder, more insistent. That morning, as I sat in the kitchen cradling a cup of coffee, Victor entered, dressed sharply in a navy suit. I'll be out most of the day, he said, scrolling through emails on his phone. What's going on? I asked, trying to keep my tone even. Meeting downtown, he replied, glancing up briefly. David's coming with me. Something about tying up loose ends. The phrase sent a chill through me. What kind of loose ends? Victor shrugged. Nothing for you to worry about, just business. But as he kissed me on the cheek and walked out the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't telling me everything. By mid-afternoon, my anxiety was spiraling. Alex was out, likely searching for a way to handle Sophie, and I was left alone in the house with nothing but my thoughts. I paced the living room, my mind racing through possibilities. And then the doorbell rang. I pulled open the door to find Sophie standing there, arms crossed, her expression dripping with satisfaction. You're late, she remarked, stepping inside without an invitation. Late for what? I asked, my voice unsteady. The money, she answered, turning sharply to face me. I told you I wanted it today. I already told you. I don't have that much, I replied, struggling to keep my voice from shaking. That's too bad, she said, pulling out her phone, because I think Victor would be quite interested in these. She tilted the screen toward me, and once again I was staring at the image of Alex and me in the garden, undeniable proof of what had been going on. Sophie, please, I pleaded, my voice breaking. You don't have to do this. Oh, but I do, she countered with a smirk, her voice dripping with mockery. Unless, of course, you magically come up with the money. Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Alex stepped inside. His body went rigid the moment he spotted Sophie. What's going on? He asked, his voice low and edged with danger. Just having a friendly chat with your dear stepmother, Sophie answered, smirking. Alex took a step closer, his body tense. You need to leave. Not without what I came for, she said, raising her phone. Alex's expression darkened, and in a swift motion he snatched the phone from her grip. Hey! Sophie yelped, lunging for it, but he held it out of her reach. This ends now, he said, his voice like ice. She narrowed her eyes. You really think that's my only copy? Her smirk returned, more venomous than before. If you so much as breathe a word of this to anyone, you'll regret it. For a brief second, her confidence wavered as Alex's eyes bore into hers. But then she straightened, smirking once more. Big words, she said. Let's see if you can back them up. She turned on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. She won't stop, I whispered, my whole body trembling. She will, Alex said with finality. I'll make sure of it. That night I overheard Victor in his study speaking in a hushed but urgent tone over the phone. David's getting too close. We need to handle this quietly. No loose ends. The words sent an icy wave through me. I crept closer, straining to hear more. If it comes to that, Victor continued, we may need to cut ties entirely. You know what I mean. My stomach twisted. He wasn't just talking about shutting David down. He was talking about eliminating him altogether. Later that night, I found Alex outside, pacing near the edge of the property. Victor's planning something dangerous, I said, my voice shaking as I recounted what I had overheard. Alex's expression darkened. We have to stop him. How? I whispered. He holds all the power. He has the money, the connections. He doesn't have you, Alex said firmly. And that terrifies him. By the next morning, everything had reached a breaking point. I woke to the sound of raised voices coming from the study. My heart pounded as I crept closer, staying hidden. "You're a reckless, selfish fool," Victor spat. "You've jeopardized everything I built." "And you're a liar and a coward," Alex shot back. "You've used Margaret to cover up your crimes, and I won't let you drag her down with you." Victor's tone dropped to something far more menacing. "And what do you think you're going to do about it, Alex? Run to the police? They'll laugh you right out of the station. You're nothing but a spoiled child playing hero." "Maybe," Alex replied steadily, "but I know enough to destroy you." A heavy silence filled the room. I held my breath, terrified of what would happen next. Finally, Victor spoke, his voice eerily calm. "Go ahead, but understand this. If you take me down, I'll take Margaret with me. Everything she's worked for, everything she's built, it'll be gone. Do you really want that on your conscience?" Before Alex could answer, I stepped into the room, my voice shaking. "Enough, both of you!" They turned to me, faces tight with anger. "This has to stop," I said, my chest tightening. "Victor, if you care about me at all, let it go." Victor let out a bitter laugh. "Care about you? Don't kid yourself, Margaret, you're just another piece in the game." Alex moved toward him, fists clenched, but I stepped between them. "Enough!" I cried. "I won't let you destroy each other." Victor sneered. "You think you can stop this? It's already too late." That night, Alex and I made a choice. "We have to leave," he said. "There's no other way." I nodded, my heart sinking. "But what about Victor? He'll come after us." "Let him," Alex said. "If we disappear, he won't be able to reach us." We packed quickly, taking only the essentials. But as we were heading for the door, the sound of an approaching car froze us in place. Victor stepped out, his expression a mask of fury as he stalked toward us. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his voice like steel. "Let us go, Victor," I said, my voice trembling. He chuckled, the sound bitter. "You really think you can just walk away from this? From me?" Alex stepped forward, his stance rigid. "It's over, Victor. You've lost." "Have I?" Victor murmured, his gaze shifting to me. "You think he can protect you, Margaret? He's a boy pretending to be a man. He'll leave you the moment things get tough." "That's enough," Alex said, his voice unwavering. Victor smirked. "You're nothing, Alex, and she'll realize that soon enough." Before he could say another word, Alex grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the car. "We're leaving," he said. "Victor didn't stop us." He just stood there, his expression dark, as if he had already won. We drove for hours, the weight of everything left behind pressing on us. As we pulled into a secluded motel on the edge of a small town, Alex turned to me, his eyes serious. "We'll figure this out." I nodded, though the uncertainty was suffocating. In the end, we weren't really free. Victor's shadow still loomed over us, threatening to pull us back. But as Alex wrapped his arms around me that night, whispering promises of a life where we could finally be happy, I clung to the hope that one day we truly would be. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to believe we could outrun the past. The soft hum of the motel's air conditioner was the only sound in the dimly lit room as I perched on the edge of the bed, my gaze fixed on the faded floral wallpaper. Alex stood near the window, pulling back the blinds every few minutes, as if expecting Victor to appear out of nowhere. "We can't stay here forever," I finally said, breaking the silence. "I know," Alex responded, his voice taut. He had been composed during our escape, even determined, but now I could see the strain beginning to surface, the tightness in his shoulders, the way his jaw locked every time he glanced outside. It was only a matter of time before the weight of everything we had done became unbearable. "We need a strategy," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Alex turned to face me, his expression hard. "The plan is simple. Keep moving. Stay ahead of him." "Do you really think Victor will just let this go?" I asked, stepping closer. Alex held my gaze. "You heard what he said. He'll come after us." "Let him," I murmured, tears welling in my eyes. "We can't keep living like this." "We don't have another option," he said, his voice raw. 3 days later, our breaking point arrived. We were driving west toward a town Alex claimed was remote enough for us to vanish when we noticed the car trailing behind us. It had been there for miles, keeping just enough distance to avoid immediate suspicion. But we both felt it. the undeniable sense of being watched. "It's him," Alex muttered, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice unsteady. He didn't respond. Instead, he veered onto the next exit, weaving through side streets in an attempt to shake our pursuer. But the car didn't disappear. It stayed with us, its headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. "Hold on," Alex warned, his voice tense before abruptly turning onto a gravel road. The car hesitated, then followed, its tires kicking up a cloud of dust as it closed the distance between us. "Alex, what are you doing?" I asked, panic rising in my throat. "Ending this," he said, his voice unwavering. He slammed the brakes, threw the car into park, and stepped out before I could protest. "Stay here," he ordered, leaving no room for argument. I watched as he strode toward the other vehicle, his fists clenched. The driver's door swung open and Victor emerged, his expression twisted with rage. "You've got a lot of nerve," Victor said coldly. "This stops now," Alex declared. Victor let out a bitter laugh. "You really think you can intimidate me? You have no idea what you're up against." "I'm not scared of you," Alex said, stepping even closer. "You should be," Victor retorted, pulling a gun from his coat. My breath caught in my chest as I scrambled out of the car. "Victor, don't!" I pleaded, my voice shaking. He turned his gaze to me, his expression dark. "This is all your fault, Margaret. You created this mess." "Put the gun down," I begged, my hands trembling. "Why should I?" he sneered. "You've already ruined everything. Why not finish it?" Alex lunged, grabbing for the gun. A shot rang out, echoing through the empty road. For a brief moment, everything froze. Victor stumbled back, pressing a hand to his side as blood spread across his shirt. Alex stood motionless, the gun now in his grasp, his face pale. I rushed to Victor, my hands shaking as I tried to stop the bleeding. "Why?" he whispered, his voice weak. "Why him?" I had no answer. Alex let the gun slip from his hands, his chest heaving. "He'll survive," he said, his voice hollow. "We have to go." Tears streamed down my face as I helped Alex back to the car. We didn't look back. We just kept driving, heading toward an uncertain future, and for the first time, I truly believed we might escape. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. We drove through the night, the silence between us unbearable. Neither of us spoke, but with each passing mile, the remnants of our old lives faded further behind us. The only thing keeping us moving was the promise we had made to stay together no matter what. As dawn broke, we rolled into a quiet town. It felt like the start of something new, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that the past was still closing in on us. Alex and I entered a small diner, ordering food in silence. The weight of our choices hung heavy between us. Then Alex's phone vibrated on the table. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. "It's Victor," he murmured. I froze. "He says he's coming for us," Alex continued, his voice tight. "He won't stop until we're back under his control." My pulse pounded in my ears. What do we do? Alex's grip tightened around my hand beneath the table. "We keep moving," he said. "We don't stop. We can't." I nodded, the weight of everything pressing down on me once again. But as Alex squeezed my hand, I knew one thing for sure. We had to stay together. And this time, there was no turning back.